Hi, I'm Edward Thompson, and today's episode of Pictures on My Mind, I'm going to talk about 6 things that I learned as a student photographer from looking at the amazing work of Diane Arbus, okay? And the first and most obvious thing that you Instagram kids might not realise is, like, she was shooting square format, like, in a time when, yeah, other people shot square format, but it wasn't that scene. Like, it was mostly rectangular, 5:4, 6:7, 35mm framing, yeah, that kind of aspect ratio. Obviously, with the advent of Instagram, like, everything's been cropped square forever, and it becomes like a very notable thing. Hell, you can buy like square picture frames everywhere now. You know what, man? Like, a little while ago, it was pretty hard to buy square picture frames. They didn't really get sold that much because the majority of photographs were rectangular. So yeah, the one thing I got from Diane Arbus was the square, and damn, I love squares. Squares are amazing for me for portraits, especially one person, because bang, and that's not quite in the middle, but you stick them in the middle and boom, bang, boom, you've got the most amazing portrait. Again, for headshots, you know, square on, bang. The square is quite an interesting frame to fill for portraiture as well, when you've got quite a bit going on, like this one. So it's a little bit jaunty, she's shooting her twin lens camera, but look at the way she's filled the frame here, you know? So again, it's a fun shape to try and fill. It can be difficult. Admittedly, like for landscapes, you might think it's not the best one, but you know, I love square format. Look at that. Works really cool for interiors, that works well. Again, for 2 people, man, square format. So again, the one thing I got from Diane was, damn, I love square format photography. And yeah, for me, my way in, which I said in a previous video, was shooting on a Zeiss Super Iconta, but obviously later on I get a Bronica with like a waist level viewfinder on it. So yeah, that's how I continue to photograph square, but damn, I love square. I love square. Do you love square? Let me know in the comments, or don't, because it doesn't matter. But yeah, anyway. So yeah, square format was wild. Number 2. Second, the environmental portrait. Diane was queen of the environmental portrait, and that's because she was probably pretty chatty as well and curious. And when she'd meet someone on the street, a bit like I've done and many photographers do, she'd be like, hey man, like maybe they invite her home, or she says, hey, can I see your house? Next thing you know, she's in their house and she's photographing them. And an environmental portrait is not like a headshot or a 3/4 length or a full length. It's a wider portrait that shows the, wait for it, environment. And that is massively important when you're photographing someone in their home, because their home or their room, it says so much about them, their personality and who they are. So in lots of Diane Arbus's work, you'll see these amazing environmental portraits, okay? So yeah, got to get on the environmental portraits, guys. So here's a burlesque comedian in her dressing room, and it's not just her. Obviously, with the use of flash, you're literally seeing everything. It's lighting all up, all the ephemera, how cluttered it is, toilet roll on the floor, just a lone shoe. You're kind of seeing so many little things that say so much about that location, her job, who she is. So yeah, number 2, the environmental portrait. Number 3, flash. Diane Arbus loved her flash. I got into it through Diane Arbus using a Metz flash with my Super Iconta and then my Bronica, because, you know, you're not just using it at night. So yeah, a lot of her photos, you can see it's in kind of a dark room and she's used that as the only light source, but a lot of the time she's blending that light. So, you know, the background's a little bit darker in this shot, but man, that kid's illuminated because boom, she's used like a direct flash. And if she hadn't used direct flash that day, who knows? For one, it wouldn't have been as contrasty and as punchy on that black and white film. For 2, you might not have seen those small details or been able to get a big enough of depth of field to have read the writing on them and trying to get them in focus. So again, it's like a practical element. So she uses it a lot. So the twins, I can tell there's no flash on the twins. You can see by the catch lights of their eyes because there are none. This one, obviously, it's at night, boom. You can see it's direct flash because look, there's a little catch light there. Again, this one, boom, you can see it's flash, but I don't think it's direct. It looks like it's off camera because look at the way the shadow of this guy is just on one side. So we can see the light source is top in the corner. So maybe either she's holding it up on her own, which I have done, or maybe she had someone there holding it too. But yeah, you could have just done that, holding that up in the air. So again, flash, 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 flash. And I know, like, later on, ISO's got amazing, but like when I was a photographer, digital photography didn't really exist yet, and like the ISOs I was shooting on, if I was in low light shooting on 3200, people looked like they were made out of Lego. It sucked. So I learned quite quickly, like, right, if I want to keep shooting at night, which I do because I'm a documentary photographer and I want to just be in this moment with these people, I need to learn to use flash. So yeah, Diane Arbus and flash, man, amazing. Like, this is flash here. Again, it's just, oh, it just works. There's something quite nice about that of black and white film too, isn't there? So in a lot of the photos, you can see the shadow here. So it's actually to one side. That's all direct flash. This one, again, nice shot in the daytime. She's blended the ambient light. But obviously with her shutter speed, it's not kind of, or her aperture, depends what it was doing. Obviously you can do it both ways. But she made the correct exposure for the flash, But then because of that exposure for the flash and the subject being correct, the background seems darker. And like some people, they don't think that's great, whatever, but it's still okay. And sometimes it's nice because it draws that subject away from the background. Next thing, super about Diane, and I think it was written about, is you can be a super tourist. That's right. Diane Arbus said photography as super tourist. Or maybe it was Susan Sontag writing about it, but whatever, she's right. You know, Diane Arbus is not only hanging out with like the social elites at Mars Ball, she's in Central Park photographing kids, she's hanging out with drag and drag acts, she's photographing like pro-war, anti-war people, she's at Disneyland, she's with nudists, she's at dances, she's in people's houses, and she's all over the place, man. Like, you know, she's literally hanging out with transvestite at a drag ball, you know, then she's a woman with her baby monkey, she's literally everywhere. She's everywhere. She's like the omnipresent Diane Arbus. And that's because, yeah, photography allows you to literally go anywhere and everywhere. So again, that's something else I learned from her, just being, you know, don't just be a tourist, be a super tourist, go everywhere. And obviously, you know, that's a bit of a downer. She wasn't a tourist, she's very knowledgeable, she got to know the people she photographed, she kind of had interest in the people she was photographing, so yeah. Maybe that was Susan Sontag who said super tourist, I can't remember. But anyway, it holds true that you can use photography as a tool to pretty much go anywhere, so you should. And on that same subject, number 5, you can photograph anything. Again, I said it in a previous video about Diane Arbus, like there's a whole thing now where documentary photographers have to be careful about their subject because someone might come and say, how dare you photograph that group of people? What right do you have to photograph that group of people? Well, you know what? Photograph anyone, photograph everyone. Why not? Why not photograph everyone? Why not, okay? Photography's become much more egalitarian now. Like everyone's pretty much got cameras. You don't have to worry about, oh, this photographer is now the lone voice in the wilderness and they have this, you know, everyone can photograph everything.
Everybody love everybody!
Okay, everyone can photograph everything. And if you really want to photograph something, you should do it. Just do it. And sometimes that might be the wrong thing to do when you're young. You know what? Do it. Make a mistake. That's fine too. You're allowed to make mistakes. Don't let someone like write some random thing on social media and stop you from doing something you want to do, okay? Because maybe you need to tell those stories. There you go. So yeah, photograph anything. Diane Arbus, photograph anything. One more thing about photographing anything is she would have taken a lot of flack for these photographs, you know? She's photographing like circus freaks, she's photographing like the trans community, and you know, this is in the 60s, right? She's subverting kind of like the rich, and she's doing loads of wacky stuff here. People would have hated her photographs, like really hated them, and I'm sure, although we're looking back now and it's like, Diane Arbus, amazing, I'm sure people would have gone for her, do you know what I mean? So good for her, and she just did what she wanted to do, that's amazing. And the final thing, number 6, which is so important, hold on, because like Diane Arbus's work is absolutely incredible and it's such a short period of time. I don't know, is it 61 to 67 or 68? Well, obviously she died in 71, so is it 10 years some of these photographs are spanning before she committed suicide? Like 10 years. She should have just held on, right? Obviously she didn't, and that's the tragedy. She ended up slitting her wrists in the bath and taking an overdose of pills, and that was it. And you know, she'd just made a portfolio of prints that she was trying to sell, this limited edition thing. She'd already had some Guggenheim fellowships. You know, she could have been about to turn a corner and just be the most amazing and successful photographer of her, like, you know, her dreams. And it just didn't happen because she killed herself. So the final lesson from Diane Arbus is hold on. Just hold on. Just keep going, you know? And, you know, if Diane Arbus had this quality of work, you know, it's really, yeah, it's really tricky. Yeah, just imagine if she'd lived, just imagine the work she'd have made, or how she'd have approached like America in the 80s. Imagine Diane Arbus photographing America in the 80s, huh? It would have been incredible. But yeah, she didn't. So yeah, the final thing to take from Diane is just, yeah, look at this, 2 Friends at Home, 1965. So, you know, Diane Arbus gets a lot of clout for like being cruel and climbing on Germaine Greer's chest and all this kind of crazy stuff, but like, there's some like delicate photos here as well. And she clearly loved people. Like, she clearly was always wanting to go out and doing all these wacky adventures and photographing all these people. But yeah, so yeah, my final thing I learned from Diane Arbus is just hold on. Because you can feel like it's not going to work out, you can feel like just giving up, you can feel like you've wasted your life or whatever, but you haven't. Because everything that you've done as a photographer has changed who you are. It's all life experience, it's all wonderful. And universities like to throw the idea of transferable skills around. Well, you know what, man, as a photographer, like just the way it shapes your consciousness, just the way it changes your view of reality, is really good. So even if your prints are in a box, even if you're struggling to sell your work, even if you think no one's giving you the time of day for your photography, just hold on and just keep going, because you will get there. You will get there. There we go.